The 1970s gave us some of the most stunning automobiles ever to roll off American assembly lines. Chrome, curves, and endless horsepower. But here is what the brochures never told you. Some of these beauties were hiding a dark secret. They were not just fast, they were deadly. This was an era before crash testing became mandatory, before crumple zones and airbags, before anyone truly understood what happens to the human body at 60 miles per hour inside a 2-ton steel missile. In this video, I will take you through the American cars of the 1970s that combined breathtaking design with genuinely terrifying engineering flaws. Not the boring economy cars, but the ones that looked like $1 million and drove like a ticking time bomb. If you are fascinated by automotive history, by the lessons we learned in blood and chrome, and by the machines that forced an entire industry to change, this journey is made for you. So before we begin, hit the like button on this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell, because what you are about to see is not just a list. It is a cautionary tale wrapped in beautiful sheet metal. When Ford unveiled the Pinto in 1970, America saw exactly what it wanted: an affordable, fuel-efficient subcompact to compete with the imports flooding our shores. It was cute, it was cheap, and it sold like hotcakes. And that's exactly where the tragedy begins. Ford engineers knew the Pinto had a fatal flaw. The fuel tank sat just behind the rear axle, with only inches separating it from the rear bumper. In a rear-end collision, even at moderate speeds, the tank could rupture, the filler neck could disconnect, and the entire car could become an inferno. Internal documents later revealed Ford calculated it would cost $11 per car to fix the problem. They decided it was cheaper to pay out lawsuits. The original price was $1,919 in 1971, equivalent to around $14,500 today. An affordable family car that came with an unacceptable risk. Fun fact: after a landmark 1978 lawsuit, Ford recalled 1.5 million Pintos. It remains one of the most infamous examples of corporate negligence in automotive history. The third-generation Plymouth Barracuda was a masterpiece of muscle car design. Those aggressive fender bulges and that low stance hinted at danger under the hood, with engine options ranging up to the legendary 426 Hemi, producing 425 horsepower. But all that power came with a price nobody talked about in the showroom. The Barracuda, like most muscle cars of its era, had drum brakes as standard on a car capable of exceeding 140 miles per hour. The steering was vague, the suspension was tuned for straight-line acceleration, and the weight distribution favored looking good over handling safely. On the road, it could rocket from 0 to 60 miles per hour in under 6 seconds. Stopping from 60 miles per hour took nearly 200 feet, with the drums fading after repeated applications. In an emergency, you were essentially a passenger. The original price with the Hemi option pushed past $4,000 in 1970, equivalent to over $31,000 today. You were paying for speed, not safety. Fun fact: insurance companies caught on quickly. By 1972, insuring a Hemi Barracuda cost more than many Americans' monthly mortgages. The C3 Corvette was automotive sculpture. Those swooping fenders, that impossibly long hood, that aggressive stance. It turned heads everywhere it went. But beneath that fiberglass body was a chassis design dating back to 1963, and engineers knew it had problems. The independent rear suspension, while advanced for its time, created unpredictable oversteer characteristics. Combine that with up to 460 horsepower from the LS6 454 engine, marginal brakes, and a tendency for the rear end to snap loose without warning, and you had a recipe for disaster. At the limit, the Corvette could accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour in 5.4 seconds. The problem was finding that limit often meant losing control entirely. The original price started around $5,500 in 1970, equivalent to roughly $43,000 today. Buyers got America's sports car with handling that couldn't match European competitors, half its price. Fun fact: Road and Track magazine famously called the C3 the most exciting way to get killed in a 1970 review. And now I'll ask you directly, If you had the chance to drive any of these beautiful but dangerous machines on a closed track today, which one would you choose? Tell me in the comments. I want to know if the allure of these forbidden classics still holds power over you. American Motors designed the Gremlin in just 18 months, rushed to beat the Pinto to market. The result was one of the strangest looking cars ever produced, with that chopped-off rear end that made it look unfinished. The aesthetics, however, were the least of its problems. The Gremlin's shortened wheelbase made it inherently unstable at highway speeds. The rear suspension was borrowed from the larger Hornet, creating handling characteristics that ranged from nervous to genuinely dangerous in wet conditions. Under the hood, the standard six-cylinder produced modest power, but that did not stop AMC from offering V8 engine options that the chassis was never designed to handle. The original price was $1,879 in 1971, equivalent to around $14,200 today. America's cheapest car came with handling that terrified professional test drivers. Fun fact: the Gremlin's name came from the mythical creatures blamed for mechanical failures in World War II aircraft. Someone at AMC had a dark sense of humor. At first glance, the mid-70s Chevrolet Malibu looked like the perfect family sedan. Reliable, comfortable, available with that smooth, small-block V8 engine. The kind of car you would trust to carry your children, and that is precisely what made its hidden flaw so devastating. General Motors positioned the fuel tank between the rear axle and the bumper, similar to the Pinto. In certain rear impact collisions, the tank could be punctured by the differential, leading to fuel leaks and fires. The Malibu moved forward with the kind of quiet competence that defined American sedans. 0 to 60 came in around 10 seconds, and the ride was smooth enough to make long trips comfortable. The original price started around $3,100 in 1973, equivalent to roughly $21,000 today. Families trusted this car with their lives without knowing the risks. Fun fact: a 1999 lawsuit resulted in a $4.9 billion verdict against General Motors, later reduced after a Malibu fuel tank ruptured in a rear-end collision, injuring 6 passengers. The Dodge Challenger RT was Dodge's answer to the Mustang and Camaro, and what an answer it was. That aggressive grille, those functional hood scoops, and engine options that read like a catalogue of American muscle car legends. But all that testosterone came with compromises that could turn fatal. With the 446-pack or the 426 Hemi, the Challenger could overwhelm its own chassis. The suspension was soft, the steering slow, and the brakes woefully inadequate for the power on tap. On paper, it delivered staggering performance. The Hemi version could hit 60 miles per hour in 5.8 seconds and run the quarter mile in the low 13-second range. But push it through a corner, and suddenly all that power became a liability. The original price with full options exceeded $4,500 in 1970, equivalent to over $35,000 today. You bought a straight-line hero that could become a backroad nightmare. Fun fact: insurance companies lobbied so aggressively against muscle cars that the entire segment was essentially dead by 1974, killed not by regulations, but by premiums. And there you have it. The most dangerous American cars of the 1970s. A decade of stunning design, incredible power, and engineering decisions that cost lives and changed an industry forever. But now it is your turn. If you could choose just one of these beautiful but deadly machines to keep in your garage, which one would it be? And would you actually dare to drive it? Drop your answer in the comments. Your participation is not just a detail, it is what keeps this community alive and what unites us as passionate lovers of automotive history, warts and all. And if you want to continue this journey through America's most fascinating automotive era, do not miss our video on the most luxurious American cars of the 1970s. There you will discover the flagships that defined excess and elegance. Trust me, you will not want to miss it.